I didn't start drone photography and videography without kicking and screaming first. I hated drones. I really did not like them. So therefore, I called the title How Aerial Photography and Videography Changed. I kicked and screamed the whole way. My good friend Matt said I should entitle it How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Drone. Hopefully you guys get the reference on that. Going through this presentation, I really had to go back through how I started with aerial photography. And man, it pulled up a lot of old memories. So as you can read on the screen, I'm dedicating this to the pilots I had a pleasure of working with who lost their lives during the entertainment or training of others. Warning, FAA rules are constantly changing. Be familiar with all rules and keep current. We will talk a little bit more about some of the FAA rules and guidelines for flying a drone. And I'm sure the comment section on YouTube will tell me I'm wrong every step of the way, which is great. That's just how YouTube works. And I promise not to make this my usual history lesson, but French photographer Gaspard Félix Tourneschon, or Nidar, as he would become named, he would initially be convinced that aerial photography could prove invaluable for surveying, map making, and also military espionage. He will become the first person to make an aerial photograph. And I don't think this is the first one. I'm having a hard time finding the official first one, but this is an example of one of his early shots of the city of Paris. This is just kind of a small clip of that. And this was in around the 1860s. So therefore, he is taking a balloon up. He is taking up his dark box. He is coating a plate similar to how Christine and I do with the wet plate collodion process. And he is making an image that is likely a few seconds long. There is a lot of great history with Nidar, but we're not going to get too deep into that. But this is a successful print from him going up into a balloon and making an image with about an ISO 3 sensitivity emulsion, and actually staying still enough for it as well. And not only was that a long exposure, what are we thinking about aperture-wise for this shot? Probably real small, right? Back then, we really didn't have the F system how we did. We would have what were called Waterhouse stops, and they would slide into the lenses and basically do the same thing, half it, quarter it, eighth it. So likely this was, I need to do more research on him because likely this was very stopped down for that depth of field on there. So pretty cool, pretty cool. I'm going to go through my journey of aerial photography, my progression and how each method worked or didn't work for me. It all started with a rocket and a dream. This is actually the Estes Astrocam 110, and I dreamed about this camera. They also had one that came out in 1966 called the Cam Rock. Yes, it's such a cool name. Not really. But you would cut discs of film for the camera. The Astrocam 110 would use 110 roll film, and you would get one exposure per launch. Estes didn't care because you were sending up and buying those rockets anyway. But one shot per launch, one engine per launch. Strangely, I had neither of these. I asked Santa for them for several years, and he just never brought it to me. But I always remembered my dream of what things look like from the sky. Now, of course, in the 21st century, we have a new version of the Estes Astrocam, and this has a video resolution of 1080p and a still picture resolution of 2560 by 1440. I did not do a megapixel count on that. If anybody's interested in getting out their calculator, but it's probably maybe 12 megapixels or something. Yeah, 12. Yeah, so pretty cool, pretty cool. Maybe one of these days I'll get one of these Astrocam rockets and send them up. Probably have a 4K version within the next year or something. After that came KAP, Kite Aerial Photography, and that is the idea of hanging a camera off a kite. That little boy is not me, by the way. You can tell because he doesn't have the mustache. They're very unpredictable. They're very similar to what I would consider almost like pinhole photography. You don't know what you're going to get. you can't tell the kite which way to go. You can just hope the wind takes it that way, and you can maneuver it as well. The camera is swinging around like crazy as well, and it's usually very difficult to actuate the shutter. Later in, a little bit later, they kind of figured that out. But the first thing you need to worry about is getting that platform for your camera as stabilized as possible. And this is what's called a picavette. And it's a special kind of way of lacing lines on the two lines of a kite. And everything kind of works together to keep that platform stabilized. And this is a GoPro on a 3D printed version of that. When I set this one up, I just set it up for a time lapse. Every 2 or 3 seconds, take a shot, take a shot, take a shot, take a shot. And that's when I got probably 10 years ago in Ocean City, Maryland. I guess I should have asked you guys where you thought that was, but that's Ocean City, Maryland, the pier at the end of the boardwalk. There are newer rigs that will allow you to use remote control receiver and transmitter, and you can change the angle of the camera, and then you can also actuate the shutter. Another thing you've got here is you've got to set the angle and hope you set it right. So these are a lot of fun to play with, but a little bit angering for a while. After KAP came hot air balloons, and we were really fortunate to be able to shoot media for the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta for a few years. And it's still unpredictable, of course, but at least I can point my camera and actuate the shutter to whenever I wanted to. If you ever get a chance to ride in a hot air balloon, I highly recommend 2 cameras, because you do not want to be changing lenses while meandering through the sky. Also, make sure you've got plenty of memory card, plenty of battery. You don't want to be messing with too much stuff, because sometimes these gondolas have little kind of slits in the bottoms, and things can fall out really, really easy. When we shot as media, they would allow us to take media flights a couple times during the week. If you ever get a chance to go to Albuquerque or to go to a balloon fiesta or balloon festival, you can usually work as a chase crew. And what a chase crew does is, as I'm going up, or as Christine's going up in a balloon, you've got people in cars that are trying to find out where that balloon's going to go. The balloon operator is constantly in connection with the cars, saying, hey, I'm going to probably land in this field over here. Go and get me permission really quick. They try to get permission. The problem with Albuquerque is great, because between where that field is, and this is Balloon Fiesta Field, I seem to remember them saying it was like 100 football fields big for this. The year that we went, they actually broke a record. I think it was 360 balloons launched in 1 hour. Full hot air balloons launched in an hour. They broke a record. But up in the air, you've got what's called a box. And that's why Albuquerque is just perfect for this, because the balloons rise at a certain height. They can go in one direction. They lower down, they go in another direction. On a perfect day, they can just kind of sit over that field and keep going around in a box. Really pretty cool. But what a chase crew does is, chase crew will follow them, because wherever that balloon lands, they need to get that balloon out of that property as soon as possible, get it packed up and where it needs to be. But chase crew, sometimes when you help and work with them, if you've helped and worked with them enough, and maybe they have a seat, there is never a guarantee. But I've seen people that worked for chase crew and worked helping them out. All of a sudden, like the last day or the second to last day, they'll say, hey, why don't you go take a ride? Pretty cool stuff. And that's a full view of that. If you've ever been to Albuquerque, it's such a great time. Get there early. And of course, this is not going to work on it, but you've got just vendors all the way down and around and back up. They've got a music stage there, which is amazing. We tried to go back last year for the 50th anniversary, but we just never could make it, unfortunately. But that was a lot of fun. It was so much fun just being able to cover every single event. Albuquerque is really interesting, because when you get there, it could be freezing. In the middle of the day, it could be high 80s. Sandia Peak, kind of to the right of this photo, One day we got on the tram and it was like 88 degrees. We went up to the top of Sandia Peak on the tramway and had a snowball fight at the top of the mountain. It was really cool, but make sure you pack plenty of layers of clothes for that. How about airplanes? I was real fortunate to really get in and run media for a lot of the air shows. As you can see, that's me on the left in the back of a Geico SkyTyper, and I'm stuck in here in this hole in this airplane, getting ready to take a flight as well. We shot Kirtland and Albuquerque for the Ocean City, Maryland air show for 10 years. We shot Ocean City, Maryland, Wallops Island, and my first air show ever was Thunder over the Blue Ridge, where I witnessed an airplane crash. And I think a lot of you have probably heard that story. Heard that story where I see an air crash and I'm like, man, I don't want to go to an air show ever again. And I got a call. It's like, hey, do you want to go up in an airplane and cover some planes doing aerobatics? And I'm like, like me, okay. Just like most of you guys, probably if you have like a phobia or a fear and you get a chance to do something really cool and be able to, ride in the back of Fat Albert or something, you say yes and then worry about it later. I was in a different plane where they had an entire door open, and I know a lot of people have probably heard this story as well, but my claim to fame is likely that I was up in an airplane and they told me not to stick my camera out the door because the wind will likely whisk it away and then I would have to let go and it would fall into the ocean. Well, I'm shooting all this stuff and I'm shooting all these these two airplanes kind of doing acrobatics, and the one guy goes behind the plane. Well, I can't shoot you from behind the plane, so I'm in a harness, and I kind of have a harness attached to me as well. So I kind of put a hand out there, and hand didn't break off. Put the camera out there. Well, about 30 seconds later, I'm actually out the door taking photos of this guy, and I realized he was doing tricks for his own GoPro that was on the back of the plane. So I apologize, Mike Wiskus, if you ever watch this, but the very next year, they had a rule for all of us, which was do not exit the plane of the door of the airplane. So that's kind of my claim of fame, and I tell that story a lot, so I guess I'm probably proud of it. With airplanes, and I didn't mention balloons. Balloons are very dangerous, for obvious reasons. Sadly, on average, about one person dies a year at the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta because of reasons. Hard landings, the gondolas getting tipped over, hitting power lines. It's a very dangerous sport. But of course, airplanes are a lot more dangerous. This is Captain Katie Higgins. She's a Safari Park girl. And in the 69-year history of the Blue Angels, she was the first Blue Angel pilot. Want to know what plane she flew? Fat Albert, the big C-130. So here I am in Fat Albert. Sadly, I was supposed to be in the cockpit, but a big affiliate news anchor came and kind of bumped me. So I'm in the back of this plane, and they give you barf bags. You kind of wonder why they give you barf bags. And then there's these ladders in the middle of the Fat Albert where all the cargo is. There's seats. So we're probably this far away from the people lined up on this side. And I'm lined up here. There's ladders in the middle, and you're wondering, why in the heck are there ladders? Why did I get a barf bag? I'm just taking a ride on Fat Albert. Well, Katie drove that thing like she stole it. As soon as we leave the runway, we go straight up, or at least it feels like it's straight up. And then we go straight down. And we continue to do that for probably 567 more times. I lost count after I started praying that the flight would end. But we'll go over the beach, and there's a tiny little porthole right here. It might have been this one back. I think it was this one back here. I could see people through that porthole on the beach laying on towels in their bathing suits. That's how close we were to the beach. But she was practicing her air show run, and I was doing good. I was doing good until I wasn't. And I have my camera, and one of the crew guys is doing like these tricks on these ladders. As she was doing these 0G dives, these guys are floating and doing all these tricks for us in the ladder. And the guy's like, "Oh, get this," and I'm not doing good. So I go, Great. Didn't even see what the photo was. So I had a guy across from me. And it's weird how this unspoken rule happens where, look, if you're good, I'm good. So you kind of like, everybody's hurting, but you kind of look at your guy. And I'm watching my guy, and I'm watching my guy, and I'm praying to the Lord that this flight ends soon. My guy went, that was it. That was it. I will say that I had a dry barf bag, but dry heaving was a big thing. And then when we land the sucker, she goes up one last time, plummets to the earth, and lands it. And then, of course, the Navy guys are laughing that they had 12 people vomit, had 12 barf bags full. So they had a good time with that. Quite literally ups and downs. Like we did, I'm gonna get emotional on this. Like we did for several years. We would go to Ocean City. We would work at the Ocean City airport, and then we would fly to We would not fly. We would drive. They wouldn't fly us. We would drive to Wallops Island, and one year we just happened to be able to meet these two great gentlemen on the right, and that is Captain Jeff Cuss and his chief. What was the official name of that? Crew Chief A01 Eli Lang. The year after, the guy on the left, Jeff Cuss, he went into a turn a little too fast, and instead of ejecting, they think that he brought the plane down and crashed into a field to spare an apartment complex. But the year before that, they awarded Christine and I these really cool certificates. I mean, we worked with them all week. It was really cool. It was really cool being with them. And not always do you get to fly chase plane. This is flying in an actual stunt plane doing the stunts. And they can't do this when they have the performance, but they can do this when they have the practice sessions. I will play this video. Nobody linked my mother in on this because she does not think that she freaked out when she heard I rode a helicopter. But this was one of the most talented pilots I had worked with. And, we're doing these Cuban 8s. At some point in here in this short video, we go up and wait for the plane to stall and fall back to the earth, which is probably not a good thing. And then several barrel rolls. As far as my mother, I told her that these were planes and helicopters that were fully okay and ready to go. I didn't tell her that these were highly experimental planes, antique planes and things like that. But that was quite a cool video. That plane was Greg Connell, and it was a highly customized biplane that was highly powerful. He called it the Wolf Pits. And when was that? In May of 2016, he crashed and died at the Good Neighbor Day Air Show.
Was that special?
It was a highly modified, but because he called it a Wolf Pits, it had to have a lot of pits in it. DeKalb Peachtree Airport, Atlanta, May of 2016. I got a chance to fly with the Geico Sky Typers in their SNJ World War II trainers, and I got to scroll down here. It's sad when you love something and you lose so many people. In September of 21, in the Poconos, actually in Wilkes-Barre Airport, pilot Andy Travnicek, which is actually plane number 3, will be the plane next to me. He crashed and died there. Funny story about the SNJs and the Geico Sky Typer team. They were really cool. They put me in the plane, and it's a metal shell. It's almost like a bicycle frame, and then like metal shells around it. And I could see all the wires moving, and I have pedals and a thing. It's like, yeah, it'd be good if you didn't touch any of that stuff. And then he puts me in a parachute. He says, well, this is for the insurance, but we're flying so low that if we have to dump out and bail, you're going to hit the water at like 200 miles an hour before parachute even thinks about opening. And he says, but anyway, we're flying with the cockpit open. It was cool because I had the radio, and I'm directing the Sky Typers because I'm getting the shot over Ocean City. And he says, yeah, don't pull this thing here. So he comes and he gets off his ladder and I'm looking, I'm like, huh. And the thing just goes, yeah, it does that every once in a while. And he shoved it back up. It was pretty cool. And one of my favorite photos, and probably one of my one of the most famous photos from our time with the Ocean City Air Show. This is just when they rebuilt the pier after the hurricane, and I had the Air National Guard duo planes coming through. They're now flying the Jack Links, the beef jerky. They reskin their planes for their sponsors, but this is from Air National Guard. And I'm coming down, and I'm waiting for that pier to be right there so that I can frame it. And this photo won not only my class in the Maryland, D.C. photo press awards, which was Division C. It was the Daily Times for the paper in Salisbury. But it also went to win Best in Show, beating out like Baltimore Sun and Washington Post, all the big names in Maryland, D.C. It was really cool, really an honor. It was kind of funny because we were on a photo trip somewhere, and the editor at Daily Times calls me and says, "Hey, can you stop by? We got something for you." And I'm like, "What is it?" It's like, "Well, we have these press awards, and you won something." And I go, and it's the first place, and it's the Best in Show. It's really cool. Really cool. All right, let me get on with the why we're here. Why did I hate drones? I didn't like the quality. I gotta tighten this up. I didn't like the quality. I didn't expect there was a challenge to be had. And let me go back to the quality thing. I mean, back then you're talking probably 8, 10 megapixels. You're talking video that maybe was 720p. It was kind of when photography started. It was a flying camera in the skies, and I never really got the idea that I would like to fly drones just because. But I didn't like the quality. As I said, I didn't think there was going to be a challenge. I mean, the thing hovers by itself. You can push a button and it comes back here and it'll sit. It'll bag and everything else. I didn't like the thought of me not hanging out of an open airplane door. Oh, Christine would like that one. I didn't like the noise of other people's drones. Before all this, it was kind of like the Wild West out there for drones, because we didn't have rules like no drones in national parks, no drones in some state parks. And we went out to Valley of Fire, which is a Nevada state park, and there were drones everywhere, and it was annoying. Little micro chainsaws. It was so annoying. I just didn't like them. I think that's it for that one. Yeah, there we go. As I said, the early days were a wasteland of no rules, and while we're closer now with as far as the rules are concerned, we're not perfect. We're not overly policed either, which is kind of both good and bad. What changed my mind? I kind of had money burning a hole in my pocket, and I wanted a way to capture some of our events. Now, of course. An example of capturing some of our events, I put a photo up of an aerial shot at Antietam National Park Service, but this is not a drone shot. This is one of those Mr. Long Arm 28-foot fiberglass poles with a 360 camera on it. But it kind of put the idea out there. We just wanted a new way to just highlight where we were and where we had our everything set up. And once we got that, we were kind of happy about it. It was also an easy way to add aerial photography to our offerings to our customers. Whether it was a wedding shot, a big thing is wedding shots, and they want an aerial photo in front of this or that, or real estate makes it really, really easy. And a lot of people did find us via our air show work. Whenever I asked people about us, they found us some way or the other. So it was real easy kind of adding aerial stuff to our repertoire and then working with that. And then I read about like FAA coming out with some rules that were basically, if you were in furtherance of a business, you needed to have a commercial pilot's certificate. It's not really called a license. And but we kind of went into that. We'll talk about 107 a little bit. When people ask me when people tell me they want a drone, I ask them why. Why do you want a drone? I see so many people that get a drone for fun. Oh, I just want to take a photo of this. Take a photo once, they put it away, they're done with it. Some people like flying them. I'm not one. I'm not one of those. If I have a job, I love flying it. I love getting the shot. I love landing it, and I love putting it back in the bag. So you kind of think about, are you going to use it? Are you going to continue to use it? Do you have things to photograph? And of course, the big one is, are you photographing for yourself, or are you photographing for the furtherance of a business? This is what it looks like to actually fly a drone. When you have this controller here, you can put a phone, or I have a big tablet. I've got a tablet called a Triple Tech, and it's got so much brightness, the sun can be hitting the tablet and I can still read it perfectly. So I've got a big tablet on the phone, and I'm actually looking through this while I'm working everything. And I have all my settings there. I'm actually in RAW right now, 8,000th of a shutter speed. Of course, I just changed settings, so I have no idea what we're doing. I'm changing all my camera stuff, changing my white balance. It's basically a flying camera. You can see the zebra stripes, but I allow the zebra stripes to come up just a little bit, and then I bring the exposure down. That looks like what I'm doing right now is kind of bringing them a little bit more back. As I'm doing this, I kind of need to make sure of a couple things. I need to make sure there are no rules in the town against drone flights, although that's kind of contested, because the thought is, as soon as you clear the last blade of grass, you're in FAA jurisdiction. You're no longer in where you're at. And there's going to be a lot of court cases fought, won, and lost about that. I need to go through my checklist. I need to make sure that my props are set. Do I have my batteries charged? Am I allowed to legally fly via the FAA in this area? Are there any what are called TFRs, temporary flight restrictions? Sometimes the president flies up to Delaware, and there's this giant ball in the air that you can't go into. Usually, and I had already done this. This is actually my third flight of this property, which is, by the way, it's the UFO Welcome Center in Bowman, South Carolina. I think it is.
I can't remember.
Remind me to talk about that place. But when I first take a drone off, I will go in and I will fly like crazy a few feet off the ground, because if I have a prop that's going to come off, or if I have something that's going to happen, or a prop that's going to snap, I want it to happen as soon as possible while the drone is still down. I can really go into this video. Where is it? That's overexposure. Yeah, that's the overexposure of the scene. And typically, I don't mind a little bit of overexposure. I'm probably shooting actually, I'm probably turning bracketing on now. Actually, I'm going into video now, and that way I can kind of, come on. With the darn zebra stripes, I can't see nothing. There we go. How am I supposed to set this video up, Christine?
I don't know.
PowerPoint is not, there it is. There's a little doodad. And yeah, PowerPoint doesn't like videos apparently. That's really weird. Let's move on. Drones for personal use. Drones for personal use is a lot of fun. What can you use them for? Flying for fun, enhancing your travel photos and videos, and also racing an FPV. What is the difference between this drone and like a racing quad or an FPV? Let's talk about it right now. Quads, drones, UAS, unmanned aerial systems, drones, they're all the same. They're all pretty much the same thing. This is a DJI. I think DJI works out well. There are some restrictions with DJI because it is a Chinese company, and you know, even though the U.S. government uses, and a lot of towns use them, they try to ban them, but they still use them. It's kind of a crazy thing. This drone, I could tell it to hover, and it will hover. I could take it up in the sky, I can point it at an object, and I could tell it to take a time lapse of that object, and it will, as best as it can with its GPS built in, it will try to stay in that exact same spot. Now, of course, with air and wind and everything, that's gonna change. But the thing is, I can let go of the controls, and this thing is not going to do anything. I can then set it so that, hey, if I lose connectivity, I want you to fly as high as you can, which is 400 feet for drone people. I want you to come back to where I launched you, and I want you to land right here, because if something happened, something happened. Don't do that on a boat, because you'll never be back where you took off from. Racing and FPV quads and drones basically are not that way. Now, DJI has got one called the Avata, where you can switch between each one. But racing quads, you are constantly giving it the uplift. You're constantly raising it up. You're constantly moving. I can't flip this thing, but those racing guys can flip a quad like nothing. Racing and FPV as well. Again, I don't fly these for fun, so one of these days I want to try one, but I don't fly these for fun, so it really doesn't float my boat. Yes, do we have a question?
Anthony asks, I'm thinking about getting one for work, roofing business. Most of our buildings are government buildings. We aren't allowed to have them on military bases. We still want to learn everything and get the pilot certificate. Is that something we can get through you?
No, I cannot. We will talk about that, Anthony, because I'm kind of in the same boat with you. But let me first start. Let's go through the personal, and then we'll hit that in the commercial. For personal use, we have, first of all, art. And, any course, angle, any height, you can set this camera up in the sky. You can set your composition how you want. If you're into videography, you can slowly pan up. I think this is Cape May Lighthouse. You can slowly pan, but anywhere you can fly within legal limits up to 400 feet, you can photograph, and you can place your drone where you need it to be to get that photograph. You can bracket, you can HDR, you can tape time lapses, hyperlapses, and there's even software where when I go into the commercial, I can record a macro of all the places I've flown, all the photographs or video I've took, and I can play that over and over and over again. As far as personal photography, you can make these. If you make these for prints, if you're selling stock, if you're selling photography or videography stock, you will need a commercial license, because as I will talk about, it is a furtherance of a business. The FAA hired really good lawyers to bring that term furtherance of a business to need your commercial pilot's certificate, because that can mean anything. I could fly my drone and give it to this church, not see a penny for that work, but it's a furtherance of somebody else's business. Now, as far as nonprofits are concerned, I think there's a gray area there. The thought also is, if you're uploading your videos to YouTube and there's ads on that, you are furthering a business. If YouTube's getting the money, or if you're getting the money, furtherance of a business. Now, this, some of you might remember, can drones be used for art? This is the photo that won first place in Unlimited Photos last year. I think it's an okay image, but I think the kicker is that it's just something new. It's a different perspective. I think that really took this image above the top, past the finish line for last year, because it is a unique view. Can drones give you that? Absolutely. Absolutely. And this we just shot, last week? This is Northside Park in Ocean City, Maryland. I think it's 124th Street. And it's a beautiful park to get sunsets at. Some of you might remember this place. Anybody remember where this place was? This is Spruce. Oh, Christine, you can't answer. This is Spruce Knob Lake in West Virginia, where we did the field trips for the club for a couple times, and we photographed Neowise from that tower right there. Beth and Cheryl and Paul were all with us with that. And this is, kind of just an idea of what you could do. Anywhere in that video sequence, you can focus your drone, you can photograph, and you can just sit there and do that. I don't talk about times in here, but a drone like this will be up. They say 30 minutes, but you really don't want to do, you really want to kind of start thinking about bringing it home about 20 minutes. Yes, Fred?
Is that a 4K or what?
The question was, if this is 4K, this is 4K. This drone will do 4K 60 frames per second.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Now it'll do 120 frames per second in 1080p, which I love because when we did our New Jersey trip last year, I was able to get down and I was photographing some surfers in slow motion from the air. It was really, really cool. As far as batteries are concerned, if you like fail videos, and I'm going to mention a guy at the end, but there was a video of somebody that took their drone out and they used up half their battery flying out over the ocean to like a cruise ship or something. Problem was the wind was following them out. So coming back, sploosh, down the ocean it went. There's a lot of drone fail videos. This is an example of what a drone racing course looks like. Again, not my cup of tea. Usually the real-time video, it needs to have no latency whatsoever, which means no delay. And therefore the copy of what you're seeing through the camera, the drone, is very low resolution. But these people fly these things like crazy. I do not have the dexterity for any of that. Probably do. All right, drones for commercial use. I already talked about FAA being smart and the furtherance of a business. Again, giving footage to a business, giving footage to a nonprofit may be a gray area. I knew some photographers that would give away a free drone photo if you booked a wedding. It's just easiest to go ahead and go through the course. The course was easy. You pay like $175. You get, and if you get a course for that, which you'll pay maybe $150, that's a lifetime thing because FAA is always changing the rules, and you want somebody that gives you a lifetime course that's going to be there. And I've got a link for somebody that I really like, and they let me give you guys a percentage, 30% off coupon for that. What ways are drones used in commercial applications, or better yet, to make money? But first, I want to say that just like photography, drones aren't perfect. This is footage that I photographed of the beach ball tower in Ocean City, Maryland. What I want you to look for is I want you to look for these black bars that are coming up. And the reason those black bars are going to come up is because I am stabilizing this footage in post. Drones are pretty good at staying and doing what they need to do, but as soon as you get some wind gusts, everything kind of goes crazy. So you definitely need, and we talk a little bit about software at the end, but we definitely need a little bit of help with your stabilization and your coverage. Weather definitely makes a problem with that. Yes, Christine, we have a question from Facebook.
Online, Harry asks, do you have to renew if you change drones for the license?
You do not have to renew the certificate, the 107 certificate, but you do have to register your drone, which is why I've got my numbers here, and I've got numbers on my drone and ways people can reach me. You need to register your drone whether you're doing it for personal or commercial use. I think it's $5. It's 5 years. You put a number on that. The problem is they were having issues where people were flying drones at night. They were getting, I think in one city a couple of years ago, one almost hit a police helicopter. There's people that are for, there's people that are against, but for $5, you put a number on your drone. Don't fly it like an idiot. Don't put it where it doesn't need to be. You're fine. But for every one, you need to pay that registration fee. If you already taken your trust, TRUST, personal kind of, before you fly, you should really do this and have the certificate. Or if you fill out and do your 107 pilot certificate, once you got that, you got that. Now the 107, you have to renew every 24 months, but that's free. They upped the price for the first part of the test, and now everything's free and online. And when I was studying for my 107, I'm not going to name names. I was studying for my 107, and I mirrored a friend that already went and got his 107, and he took his own. So what happened was we did a Jitsi call, and I watched his screen, and he got every question wrong, but they let you take it again. Oh, well, you got the 3 questions wrong on this. Okay, we'll do it again. And it's hard because there's so much weird stuff in these FAAs. I mean, there's stuff in there we have a friend named Dom, and he's a helicopter pilot for the Maryland State Police. And I'm asking him questions. He's like, why do you got to learn that? Why do you got to learn a sectional chart? Or why do you got to learn a METAR? And I'll show you some examples because it's kind of crazy. I think they just want to make it seem like you're getting something for your money. But I've had my license for over, maybe a year and a half now, and I've never used these things. News coverage. We were coming back from Ocean City, and somebody might have flicked a cigarette butt and started a big old fire. So see smoke up ahead. I have to have the drone in there. So we parked up here. I sent the drone over and got a little bit of coverage of this fire. I got some video too of the firefighters putting it out. But as long as you stay far enough away, you're not going to bother people. But you got to be real careful because there's things what are called TFRs, temporary flight restrictions. And if there's some kind of an active investigation, they may throw one up. But you got to be real careful about where you fly. Don't bug anybody. Don't bother anybody. I was going to put a myths kind of section in here, but a lot of people think that just because they see one outside their house that it's got a zoom lens that's peeking in your bedroom window. These drones have wide angle lenses on purpose. Not that they're not going to have zoom lenses in the future, but in order to see through a window, it's got to be real close to a window. Move on. Does anybody remember the Harpers Ferry train derailment? Here's Harpers Ferry National Park right here, and National Park is off limits for flying drones. Thankfully, I'm really happy about that. But I took off and I was flying outside of National Park property. There is a gray area to National Park property. National Park, you cannot land or take off a drone in National Park property, nor can you operate a drone in National Park property. So some people can sit there, and I definitely nicked the corner of this. This was many years ago. But some people are like, well, if I'm outside of National Park and I fly in, I don't land, I come back, I'm okay. Well, National Park kind of got smart where they can say, well, you were disturbing the wildlife. So National Park has a way to get you. I kind of like it. I can respect it. When we were at one of our last gigs, I talked with one of the National Park Service, their police force there. And I just asked them what their thought was. And they said, you know what? Which is exactly what I thought. People do that. It ruins the enjoyment. You don't want to hear that noise. I mean, drones have been getting a lot quieter, but they're annoying and loud and big pains in the butts. If I move on, this is kind of the video. This was actually in the end of 2019. We were staying in a camp cabin. Christine went to New York, brought home COVID for us. So I got to enjoy that in a camp cabin in a bathroom about the size of this lectern here. But kind of gives you an idea of what just getting this up. Previously, what do you have to do? You had to have a news agency go out there and fly a helicopter and get all the shots that you wanted. Pretty crazy stuff. While we are talking about other people in the air, drones are kind of like, drones give way to everything, even birds. We went out to Red Rock Canyon in Nevada. They allow drones, Valley of Fire does not. And I started flying my drone, and these little cliff swallows started dive bombing it. And I'm like, yeah, I better take that out of the sky pretty quickly. Got a question,
Harry
Christine?
was asking if you have any tales of drones actually being taken down by birds.
Just last week, there is a video where I think it was a hawk snatched a drone out of the air, and the drone and maneuvered it just enough so that the hawk is kind of picking at the camera, and the camera can see the hawk. I don't know if the drone pilot got the drone back, but you can actually have the software kind of put a kind of a lower quality video on your phone. So let's say you're flying a drone, you're recording the video a little bit to your phone, but really it's recording to a memory card, the high resolution. Then if you ever lose it, you can kind of get help getting it back. The GPS reports that I can hit a button and it'll start beeping for me. But there's a little bit of recovery options there. But yeah, Charlie Brown, trees always ate his kites. Well, the trees love drones. And I like the thought that a tree never hits a drone except in self-defense. Here's one of the photos. This is the photo that we used for the incident, kind of given the valley there and how the train tracks were, and then the mess on that side. Inspections, and this kind of goes with Anthony's shot, Anthony's question. Yes, we've been getting kind of big into inspections, and the big thing about that is I'm not an inspector. So what I do is I've got a big tablet. I talked about that triple tech tab. I've got a big tablet, and I will sit there with the project coordinator, and I will have them direct me what they want to see. And I'll either take high resolution photos or I'll shoot 4K 60 video, and I will get around and inspect as much stuff as I can. This is a water tower with communications, with cell communications on top. And an Osprey decided to leave to create a nest up there. So we went up there to try to figure out what kind of a nest it was. And at some point I go down a little bit. You can see a crab shell in there. That Osprey's got a good taste. And then right here is something fuzzy, probably a rodent or something. So a little surf and turf for the Osprey.
No, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
You actually take the picture off the video, or is it two separate?
It's two separate things. I can set it in picture mode, or I can set it to video mode. Picture mode, I believe, is it's 21 megapixels, which is like 62 something on the longest side. If I pulled it from 4K video, that's only 3860 on the longest side. So it's really not ideal. And there's dinner. Well, what's left of dinner. Another big thing, and getting back to Anthony's thing, especially for roofing, I need to figure it out. But there are a lot of people and a lot of roofing companies that can, and there's software that you can take photos of a roof and it will actually estimate the square footage of the shingles and everything you need for that roof. Inspections can also go up where a ladder might not want to be able to go up, or be quicker or cheaper than sending somebody up there. And just kind of figuring out, is flashing on a pipe cracked? Is there a damaged shingle? Something fun like that. One of my favorite things is line mapping. And this is a lot of fun because I get to take the raw footage, and what they'll do is they'll map out exactly where everything is. And I use a piece of software called Adobe After Effects. And what it'll do is I'll make points along that line. And as I rotate around there, it follows that, so that you can give clients a rotating video with their point lines intact. And when you're talking about a video, you're talking about maybe 30 to 60 frames a second. So every 5-10 seconds, depending on the project and how difficult it is, you just go in there and clean up those markers, and it works out really, really good. Orthomosaics are a lot of fun, and we usually do a lot of this stuff with communities. This is a community called Wingate, and the way this works, and I tried to find a photo of something, but if you take a 360-degree photo right here, what's going to happen is when you start seeing the houses up here or the houses down here, you're not going to see them straight on. What you're going to see is you're going to start seeing them at an angle, at an angle, at an angle. So what an orthomosaic does is I'll actually fly a crisscross pattern over the entire property, and I will, kind of like a panoramic shot, I will overlap all those things. So therefore what will happen is I'll have an entire neighborhood or entire project of video, of photos, and every single house is going to be as straight up and down as humanly possible. This community up top is not this community. This actually goes from here, this road, down to the next road. So that's why these, when I delivered it to the client, I cut the sidewalk usually. And but you can see kind of how the houses are. You can see the sides, but all of these, I think I flew the road and then several crisscrosses back and forth inside of that. But that uses a piece of software that takes several hours to figure out and patch them all together and to make them all straight top-down shots. But it's very similar to what Google does with satellites. And when depending on the client you work with, you can actually use GIS, which is Google Image Services. And just like Google Street View and the photos you can put on businesses inside Google Maps, you can kind of do the same thing. You can kind of update these things. That way, if someone is building a property, like you'll see in a little bit, you can constantly update them on that, and they can not only see the whole entirety of the Google Maps, but they can see their progress on top of that as well. Oh, and speaking of progressions, this is a little progression project I've got that is almost done. But when you fly through a progression, remember I told you about how the drone moves with the air. And I'm working on trying to come up with a script that'll run on the drone that will kind of help a little bit with this. Because if you look at these photos that I've fixed in Warp, those photos are all over the place. So I'm trying to figure out a way to do that. But this is a progression photo that's been kind of stabilized. Wood roof up top, just the metal structures, and then moving forward, moving forward, moving forward, moving forward. And what I usually do is I'll put that in the images, and I'll put them in a folder that clients can just download. They could tell me I want something every week, every 2 weeks, every month, and I'll put it in a folder by date, and they always have access to my cloud folder, and every time they see something new, they'll get an email. And then I also make an animated GIF, which I'll do like 0.5, usually 0.2 or 0.5 seconds between images. That way they can kind of see the progression. What does it take to be a FAA 107 certified? What does it take to be FAA 107 certified for commercial operation? Requirements as of right now is over 16 years of age, read, speak, write, and understand English, be in physical and mental condition to safely fly a drone. Okay. Exam of 60 questions and a pass of 70% or higher. What's that, like 42? $175 every 24 months. You've got to go online and do a recurring test, but that test is free. And as I said, don't game the system. But I had a friend go through and get a lot of questions wrong, and because, like I said, you don't keep up on this stuff, and it's not like they're going to fail you and take your certificate away. Can I study for the 107 with free resources? Yes, and that's what I tried to do because I'm cheap and I don't like spending money. And I found resources that were old. I found resources that were changed. I found resources that were just incorrect. I highly recommend taking an in-person or online course. Information is scattered, old, new, rules change. Find a resource that offers the rules that are as they are now, as they are that you're going to take the test now, and updates every time the rules change. I recommend giving yourself about 2 weeks. That was with me studying every day, a couple hours a day. And really, I could have done it in 1 week. Find a resource that has good online tests. And it's kind of funny. You kind of feel like a complete traitor and imposter because you go into an FAA testing facility. So it's this government building with just depressing color walls and all those little partitions and all the cameras and all the spyglass and make sure you're not cheating. Well, the problem is they're training real pilots in there. They're giving real pilots tests. So I feel like a complete putz for going in and taking a test to fly a toy around, all near these like real pilots. So it was kind of funny. Here are some of the silly things that you need to learn. You need to learn sectional charts and airspace classification. You must learn them. I've never looked at a sectional chart since I passed my test. You need to know the class on airspace. You need to figure out the visual towers, mountains, lakes, other landmarks for pilots, restricted or military airspace. Let's do a sectional chart. This is BWI right here, section right here, BWI. And I'll go to the next slide here. This is like an upside down wedding cake. And from here, in this first circle, there'll be something somewhere. I can't figure it out right now. I have to look at it a little closer. But from here to a certain area, that's where your restricted airspace is. And then the next tier and the next tier, because planes are coming down, they're not staying at this low tier.
John?
Yes.
Yeah, the tops of the airspace, I'm sorry, I'm a commercial pilot.
Oh, there they are, 464.
Yeah, it's 10,000 feet to the top. and, down to 2,500 feet in that particular.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's coming back. 10,000, and then you add two zeros.
Lower and lower, correct.
Right. Thank you.
And within BWI, it's all the way down to the surface of the ground.
Right. From here to, surface to 10,000. Nice.
What do the concentric circles mean?
Well-
That's different airspace. It's like upside down to restricted airspace.
Let me go to the next one because this is it right here.
You see the bottom of the cross?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's over BWI.
But see how it looks like an upside down wedding cake?
Right.
But the thing is, drones are not allowed to fly over 400 feet. So really, you're worried about the surface to.
But if I make a conversation as a commercial pilot, I do a lot of flight training around here. I've had several near misses with drones.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not supposed to fly under 500 feet.
No, it's not me. They're up in my ears.
Oh, they're over 400? That sucks.
Yeah. Well, it happens.
That's terrible.
And it's very, very restricted, this airspace.
Yeah.
Here. I've had it happen on the Eastern Shore. I've had it happen down in the Carolinas. I mean, it goes on. There's not enough regulation.
Yeah, what we're talking about is she's a commercial pilot. She's found planes up in her airspace, which starts at 500 feet. And we'll talk a little bit about bad actors as well.
I mean, I've seen 2,000, 4,000.
Oh my goodness. Now, when I go back now, as far as drones are concerned, you can go over 400 feet if an object in proper airspaces, like let's say there's a tower that's 500 feet, you can go over that in order to get over the tower. But the problem is you won't be anywhere close. So if you're seeing drones, they're definitely not doing what they should be. Absolutely. METAR and TAF reports, you know these. I don't. I had to learn them. So let's read this. Let's read this report.
In English.
Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Forecast prepared on the 5th day at 11:30 UTC. Forecast valid from the 5th day at 1200 UTC to 1200 UTC on the 6th. Wind 140 degrees true at 8 knots. Visibility 5 statute miles, and it goes on. It's simple, right? You guys following along?
The KM or the KO?
The KOKC. OKC is the airport code for Oklahoma.
From like on the 5th day, 1600 Zulu to 1800
The BR means mist. Makes sense, right? Broken clouds.
It's French.
Is it French? Is that why it's BR?
Yeah.
But anyway, this is the silly stuff. And it's kind of crazy because when you watch a video on it and you take a couple of the practice tests, you're like, oh, I can read these now. But if you don't use it, you lose it. So that's why I can't read it anymore. Those were weather reports, yes. Becoming, these are all your days. Becoming.
TIS is terminal area forecast. So some of them are forecast, some of them are current.
Right. What happens when somebody doesn't follow the rules? Not much, sadly. There's a big question mark because even though we say thankfully there are laws to protect drone pilots and the general public, because as a drone pilot, I'm a general public before a drone pilot. Because that's why I hate them so much. I don't want to listen to them out there. I don't want to see them, crash into things. And now, as a pilot myself, I don't want to see some Yahoo break the rules and then cause problems for the rest of us. During COVID, and I say this a little tongue-in-cheek, bored FAA agents were on the lookout on YouTube for violations. Thankfully, unless the violation was really egregious, they were kind of giving people a warning and saying, look, the rules are new. Let me kind of educate you on what you did wrong and make sure you're doing okay. When the FAA doesn't act, there are usually plenty of good drone pilots that try to keep people from doing anything stupid. And if you don't believe me, wait a week. As I said earlier, wait a week and look at the comments on this video on YouTube, and I'll prove my point probably. Thankfully, there are laws on the book. If I get the mouse working. Oh, darn it. Thankfully, there are laws on the book about national parks, which we already covered, so I don't need to talk about that again. Desktop programs that I use for drone flying, I use Topaz AI Sharpen and Topaz AI Denoise, or even the new Photo AI, which is really cool, which has Sharpen, Denoise, Gigapixel, all built in. And really, you want to, because you need to make sure it's kind of like your movement rule. If you're shooting at 1/50th if you're shooting at 50 millimeter, you want a handheld at 1/50th of a second or faster. Kind of the same thing for drones. They're not perfectly glued up in the sky. You need to make sure you're slow. And in fact, I use a program when I do my crisscrosses for that ortho mosaic. I have to stop my drone, move to the next location, stop. The wind will move it around, so it'll fight the wind. And when it gets that GPS lock, photograph, move to the next, photograph. If you don't do that, you're going to get a little bit of motion blur. So you're going to get that a little bit. You might want to take your ISO up, and that's where denoise will help out a lot. Drones do great panoramas. Not only do they do like a 360, which isn't a 360. It'll shoot like down, up, move, down, up, move, down. It'll kind of do that all the way down, up. Drones can only look so high up. It's like 20 degrees. The DJIs can go 20 degrees up. And depending on the drone, 20 degrees up, you may see the props. This one you don't. And then you just go into Photoshop and you put the dome. You can Photoshop the dome in. But PT GUI is good for that. It also does, landscape or horizontal panoramas, or like what's called a 180, and it'll do a bunch of shots on a 180. PT GUI is very expensive. I think it was $299 for the Pro version. Hugin is a free version, but I don't really recommend that. That doesn't seem to work anywhere near as good. Adobe Lightroom does pretty well for panoramas, but it won't do the 360 stuff. But it'll do kind of horizontal or vertical panoramas. Microsoft Ice has not been updated for a long time, but you can still usually find a copy. Some people swear by it. I didn't find it to work very well for me, but I want to throw it in there because, like I said, some people swear by it, but they're probably cheaper than I am and just make it work. Photomatics Pro, which a lot of us probably know, I use that for the HDR bracketed shots because I do work with a lot of HDR. It doesn't look like it because I try to keep it as natural looking as possible. For video conversions, I use a program called Handbrake. It's free. It'll convert any format to just about any other format. Adobe Premiere Pro for editing and Adobe After Effects for stabilization, usually. And then more drone resources. The FAA website is faa.gov/UAS. There is a great website called SkyVector, which does online sectional charts, and those are online real time. If you're learning, go to skyvector.com. You can pull up any area. Phone apps, which are good, is the FAA's got an app called Before You Fly, which will tell you if you are cleared to fly or if there are any restrictions. You may only go up to 100 feet or 200 feet. There's a website it's an app called UAV Forecast, which will give you weather forecasts. An app called Kitty Hawk, which I haven't used in a long time, which I think is very similar to Before You Fly. DJI's apps for flying the thing. They will tell you if you are in airspace or not. And I'm not getting into Lance and some of the areas where you've got to get permission to take off in and tell them you're not going to act like an idiot. There's a program called Litchi, an app called Litchi, which is it's a drone flying program that uses the SDKs of the drones. So a lot of drones you can fly in this alternative app. And at least for when I had the old DJI Mavic Mini, it gave that thing a little bit more power to do things that the actual DJI app did not. I really don't use it. I really don't use Litchi anymore. I use Drone Harmony for those crisscross maps, and then I use used to be called Verifly, but now it's called Thimble, and that is as you need it insurance for drones. I think it usually runs between $5 and $10 for half an hour's worth of like insurance. Like if you're flying somewhere and you need to make sure you have a little extra insurance, you can buy it right then and there. The place that I highly recommend if you want to learn about your 107 is Remote Pilot 101, remotepilot101.com. Use the code HERON18 for 30% off the lifetime course. And because I know that code, they gave me the code for our friend Ken Heron. I knew it was Ken's code, so I emailed Ken and made sure that that worked out. Ken, if you get 1 million signups, you owe me a crisp high five next time we see each other. And we are also on YouTube as well, John Miller Photography. And whenever we get a chance to do a little bit of travel stuff, we put some drone and some photography stuff. We got to get back into that. We've got a lot of plans for this year. But that's pretty much it. Thank you, guys. You have any questions? Yes.
What's the model of that drone?
That's an old Air 2S.
What is it?
Air 2S.
Air 2S.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fred.
How much is it?
I think with all the batteries and everything was about $2,000. Yeah.
The camera and everything come with that?
Oh yeah, it's one whole unit.
Okay, because the camera looks very.
Yeah, the question was the first question was what model that was, and then Fred asked about the camera, and the camera is one of the DJI's, kind of like they have the Pocket, same thing. It's complete stabilization head on that.
It's 1 inch sensor.
I don't think it. I think it's a. I know it was a larger sensor. See if I can get my glasses to figure it out. You're right, Ed. It's a 1 inch 20 megapixel sensor. Yeah. Sue, did you have a question?
I have 3.
Uh-oh.
All unrelated. That first image from the fellow called Nadar,
Mm-hmm.
balloon, with all that old-fashioned camera gear. How did he compensate for the fact that the balloon is drifting along in the air?
His first try didn't work out too well. And then he had a big balloon called Le Géant. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But it was a gigantic balloon that had almost what looked like a house and a kind of an air, like a spectator's area up top. I remember a story about that thing getting loose and kind of crashing through towns and kind of wreaking havoc. But from what I understand, they would tether that. They would have a giant balloon with a giant gun that would compensate for any of that movement. Yeah.
The other one with the camera hanging from the kite,
The Picavette, yes.
even with the crisscross. Knowing what I've seen about how kites come down, whether they're well controlled or not well controlled, how do you grab the camera before it hits?
The question was, back with our kite aerial photography stuff, how do you get the camera off the kite before it crashes? Usually you need kind of like drones, you kind of need another person. You need a VO, a visual observer. But kind of like with drones, you really want to have somebody, as you're bringing that kite down, catch that. Now, we're not talking about stunt kites or anything. We're talking about big Delta kites, stuff that really shouldn't, want to go too crazy on you. Where's that Picavette? There it is, right there. And even if you did, you put a GoPro in that with one of those GoPro plastic cases, if it hits the dirt, you just rinse it off. No big deal. Yeah. Had another question?
Third question was, when you were doing all that photographing at the OC Air Show,
Mm-hmm.
who contracted you, or where were the images being sold to?
The actual Ocean City Air Show did. And they would contact and they would put our information out to the local newspapers. Yeah.
And they used it for their own publicity for the next year. and the
Yeah.
next year.
Yep. Yeah.
Online, Harry is saying, John, did you let folks know that depending on the weight, they don't have to be registered, but they should anyways?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that before we started the stream. You've got to register it if it's 250 grams or heavier, and then the upper limit on that is 55 pounds. If you've got a drone over 55 pounds, you're in a different class anyway. But and our friend Ken would call the drones underneath that limit the outlaw drones. People think they're the outlaw drones, but even though you don't need to register them, you really should anyway. You do need to take the FAA's trust exam, which is I don't remember if it was free or if it was cheap. Was it free? Because Christine took it. Even though she's my visual observer for my 107 flight, she took the free. I think it's Part 60, not Part 61. Can't remember what it was, but Part 61 is if you already have a pilot's license, you can go through and you can pretty much skip all the craziness because you know it already. But yeah, you really should. You really should register it. get your number on there. That way, if even if you lose it, and that's really good. If the drone goes haywire, and thankfully I've never had a problem with that. If the drone goes haywire, they be able to find you and bring it back to you. Only problem is if it crashed through like a bank and took some money, they'd probably not be very happy about that. Yeah, not really sure. We have any other questions?
Sure.
Yes.
When I was at Ocean City, that park they have, instead of having fireworks, they had hundreds of drones there, and they were all programmed with different lights.
Yeah, this park right here, Northside Park.
Light and formation and everything was really neat.
What Ed was talking about was Northside Park. I think they'll do it I think they do it on the Sundays in the park when they do the ice cream sundaes. I think that's when they do it. And there's a company that will bring out, and instead of fireworks shows, they will put, I can't remember how many it was, at least 100 drones, like little micro drones that know the spatial awareness of each other, and they'll do all kind of patterns and stuff. I think they had that for the Olympics a couple years ago too.
Lights, different color lights.
Yeah.
Change and everything.
It's a really cool.
Now that park is Bayside, that's Bayside.
Yeah, that's Bayside. I think it's 124th Street. It's a beautiful park. Whenever they do, I think it's November to
January, first week in
first week in January, they do the Winterfest of Lights in that park. And they used to be, you go there and you get on the tram, and the tram would run you around. So many light displays around that park. But when COVID hit, they let people walk it. And people like the walking tour so much, I don't think they do the tram tour anymore. So you can walk it at your own pace. Really nice. I think it's like $6 to get in. It's unreal. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything online? Fine then. Let me get back here. Yes, Bob.
In drone, I've seen something called optical flow. What is that?
Oh, you're going to make me think. Optical flow, I think that's what DJI calls their the transmission between the camera of the drone and your view, if I'm thinking the right thing. Because when I fly a drone, I'm looking through that camera as I fly that drone, as you saw in the video. But I believe that's DJI's if I remember correctly, I think that's DJI's patented technology for getting that video from the drone to you as quickly as possible, so that you can maneuver around.
So none of the drones have a down-looking camera and use that to control either their height or their motion.
Well, and DJI is kind of secretive with their technology. I'm not sure if they've ever come back out, but this camera will look down. I can look completely down. I can look up, but it will only go like 20%.
There's not another camera at the bottom.
Well, here's the thing. There's all this stuff on the bottom. This is a high-powered light. I can turn the light on. I also have a Velcro on top. Being a 107, I can fly night missions as long as I have a strobe on here that will go out 3 statute miles. I've got sensors on top. I've got sensors on the bottom. I've got sensors behind. The only sensors I don't have are the side sensors. So the only way I could crash this, unless there's a fluke of something, or maybe something that didn't detect, is if I'm strafing and videoing and or whatever. So that's what I'll usually do, is if I'm flying a mission where I'm strafing, I can do a practice run mission where it flies that same mission forward. That way, if anything's going to get in the vision of this sensor, it's going to stop. Then I know I can strafe, and I can, because with like Drone Harmony, I can sit there and say, okay, well, I want to focus on this point, and then I want to draw a line of where I want this to fly, and it'll always face that point where it's flying. I can do that. Now, getting back to your question, allegedly, and when you take this drone off and you fly it wherever you want, and you hit the home button, I like bringing it back myself, but you can hit the home button, it'll come back down and land. It's pretty close. Now, I've heard people speculate that this thing, that this guy here is a camera, and it takes kind of a little photo of the area you took off of. I don't know if that's true or not. But allegedly, it takes a little photo and it matches that up when it lands. I don't know about that.
But watching it from the beach in Ocean City, sand is sand is sand. It's going to see nothing but sand for so long before it gets to the live view.
Yeah. Now, some people I've got a couple. So I've had people buy me the little the little, you know how the reflectors kind of pop out, but it's got like a big orange H on one side for a helipad. And then you can run that up and bring it back down. But I just find a piece of concrete and send it up. So I've never really tested it. But yeah, you never want to launch it on sand, dirt, if you can help it. Sometimes I've had to launch it in kind of tall grass, and I mow the grass until until it can grab enough air and go up. But I mean, they're pretty durable. They're pretty darn durable. I've run them into poles and stuff over water. Over water's crazy. You'll never forget the first time you flew a drone over water. It's nerve-wracking because if you lose control, it's an artificial reef now.
That's where your observer stops. The edge of the sand, beginning of the water. You won't go any further.
That's true too. Any more questions? Any more questions online? All right. Well, I thank everybody for coming out.